homework assignments to complete by the time that happens. We do have a recording of the session that will be posted if you need it, but since you're here, you won't need to recap that. Today, we're going to focus briefly on making time for PLC work with Catherine. Then we're going to revisit our Unpack standard. So I hope you have your Unpack standard with you. That was a homework assignment. And then we're going to take that a step further, and Karen's going to walk us through big ideas and essential questions before we wrap up for the day. Our objectives are that you'll be able to unwrap standards with greater skill and clarity and clearer purpose than we did back in the November session. So just like any scaffolding, the more we do it and the more we add on to it, the more it makes sense to us. We're going to apply basic team feedback protocols that support collaborative PLC work and integrate processes of identifying our big ideas and essential questions and their importance to unwrapping the standards. So catching up and checking in really quickly. So our webinar 1 objectives were to deepen our understanding of PLC Institute requirements and activities, articulate your role within the PLC implementation process, and identify your role, the role of our PLC Institute coaches. Karen and Catherine are on with us today. James is going to join in the last hour just because he has time to. I don't think we'll see Stephen today, but that's okay. Neither Stephen or James were required to be here today, but James is like, I'll come later because he likes to hang out with us. Our day 1 objectives from our session in November was, again, to deepen our understanding about the PLC basics, specifically looking at culture shift, big idea, and those 7 building blocks we talked about, identifying team roles and responsibilities of distributed leadership, building that collaborative team culture, and identifying our PLC collaborative tools for successful implementation. And then for day 2, we leaned into our essential standards, explaining the shifts in the CCRS, understanding the correspondence through the English language proficiency standards and how that provides our language lift to the CCRS. As a reminder, our ELPS do not stand alone. Remember, there are 10 English language proficiency standards and a lot more college and career readiness standards around reading, speaking, listening, writing, and mathematics. And so our ELPS can help us achieve any one of those categories in there, but they are not intended to stand all by themselves. They should be coupled and married with your CCRS. We practice unwrapping a standard and an English language proficiency standard to create learning objectives. And then you created SMART goals to answer your big guiding coalition question, to begin guiding coalition planning. And you have an action plan with that. Your coaches have been working with you all on those pieces as well. And I've been hearing that's been going pretty well. Coaches have said really great things. So for our first activity, we're going to do a quick poll just to figure out where we are in road trip terms. How are you feeling? We've had a great trip so far, but we don't anticipate any issues getting to our destination. That means you've had no implementation issues to report. You might have had a few bumps in the road, but you're moving forward. That means you've had a few minor implementation issues, but you've been able to move past them. You're on the road, but you're stuck in traffic. That means you might be hung up on a specific implementation issue. You've made it to the driveway, but you're still fiddling with the GPS. That means you're planning and you haven't implemented the plan yet, which is okay. And last is we haven't even left the house yet because we're still planning our trip. That means we're still in the implementation planning process. So where are you in road trip terms for your PLC implementation? All right, so far 5 of us have responded. 6, there's 2 of us who have not yet. 7, 1 more. 8, perfect. All right, we're going to end that poll and share our results. So it looks like none of us felt like you've had a great trip and you don't anticipate any issues, which is normal at this phase in PLC implementation process. 2 of us said we've had a few bumps, but we're moving forward. 4 of you said we're on the road, but we're stuck in traffic. 1 of you said that you're still kind of fiddling with the GPS in the driveway, and 1 of you are like, we haven't even left the house yet because we are still planning. Interesting thing is that we have 2 teams here, which means you have varied perspectives within those teams about where you are, which is totally okay. Sometimes from the admin perspective, it might be like one thing that you're looking at. From the teacher perspective, you're looking at it kind of differently. So teachers might be like, I feel like we're doing okay. And the admin be like, I don't know, we're still trying to figure out the time here. Or it might be vice versa, where the teachers are like, I feel like we need to get a little bit more buy-in. And admin's like, I feel like you guys are doing great. So it's totally okay to have varied responses here. And again, it's also okay if you're at the very beginning of that process and you're still just kind of planning it. So before we jump in to our first part of the day, making time for PLC work, are there any burning questions that you have right now that you want to talk about or that you want to ask? Go ahead, Jose.
So when our PLC coalition committee met, we talked about um PLCs being, they can also be inquiry cycles too. Um
Cycles of the PLC cycle of inquiry. Hmm.
yeah, the PLC cycle of inquiry. So I think that was like something not necessarily that I need more information on, but something that I didn't think about. Um
Well, I'm glad you raised that, Jose. So if you go back to our session, I want to say it might have been on our first webinar, but it was definitely in our day one November materials. There's a handout in there called the PLC Cycle of Inquiry that talks about the plan, teach, assess, reflect process. But if you look at the little boxes next to it, it tells you what kind of questions and evidence connect to to each one of those parts of the cycle. And so that little handout is a really, really great guide to understanding what that cycle looks like. But yeah, the PLC process is an ongoing cycle of inquiry. We're going to plan what we're going to do. We're going to teach it. We're going to assess if that worked out well, and then reflect on did it go good? If it did, then we're ready to move on. Did it not? Then maybe we need to revise and tweak and do it again, right? And so that's the ongoing cycle of PLC. PLCs are not a one and done. It's not like you had 6 meetings, we did this for 6 months, we're finished. It's ongoing. So I'm really glad you raised that so we could reiterate that that is an ongoing cycle, and it's a really good point to point out. And Angela found a picture of the handout, and it has a handout number on that slide right there you've got, so that'll help you map that backwards. There you go. So yeah, you have that handout in your binder, Jose. So feel free to explore that with your team and even bring it up with your coach if you want to talk more about being intentional with that cycle of inquiry as you move forward.
Yeah,
Really
that's
great.
A1 handout too.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Angela.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So, because we're within a district and there's so many different types of training that
Hmm.
are happening within different circles. Um, Teaching TEL is one of them.
Hmm.
TEL, which is the cycle of inquiry that really focus on the cycle. And then professional learning framework is another one that
Hmm.
our district is adopting. And so it can be a little confusing when you have different titles for the different types of training, but the important thing is to look at where they intersect because they're not separate and distinct.
Right.
And so that cycle of inquiry is really key to
Hmm.
to all of these processes. And I think it's important to really map out for people who are having so many different types of trainings that
Yes.
there is an intersect point
Yeah.
so that people don't feel like they're doing like all these different things.
I really love that you raised that and want to elevate it even more because we might see all these different frameworks and different processes, whether you're using the standards for professional learning, which I think you guys all got a copy of, if you're looking at the PLC cycle of inquiry, if you're looking at all these other cyclical processes and things. But I think what's really important that Angela just said is that they intersect, they can connect, and thinking about how they fit within each other. One thing we try to encourage folks to do is when you have a PLC in place or you're establishing your PLC, don't drop your PLC because something new comes up. Use your PLC to funnel that information. So, for example, in 2020, everybody was focusing on digital literacy and technology integration. And I kept hearing, well, we can't do our PLCs right now because we have to do this tech thing. And I'm like, well, why not leverage your PLCs to do that? It's a learning community. You can learn about it together, learn from one another, integrate those activities into your lesson planning, etc., and still have that as part of the process. Likewise, when folks were focusing on other aspects, whether it's new textbooks, if new program and software, if you got a new version of Burlington English, new CASAS assessment, you're doing a new co-op, like whatever the thing is, you don't have to separate it. If it's about instruction, put it with your PLC process instead of separating it out and make that an integrated, into ingrained part of how you do these things. I really love what you just said, Angela, about making those connections and understanding the intersectionality between your professional learning communities and all these other initiatives, because you don't want folks to get initiative fatigue when we bring out new things we want them to do with instruction and curriculum. But if you make it part of the PLC process and you are saying, this is what we're doing as a school, PLC teams work on integrating that. Let me know if you have any challenges, questions, if you need resources, that kind of thing. That goes a lot more smoothly than when you say, okay, we're going to stop PLCs and we're going to focus on this. And that includes WASC. I don't know how many times I've heard people say we haven't had PLC meetings in the past 6 months because we're going through WASC. Why aren't you leveraging your PLCs for WASC? Your PLCs provide you with evidence that you need for WASC. WASC looks for professional learning communities. So don't abandon your PLC process when you're going through accreditation, when you're doing new initiatives. Think about how you can integrate it into your PLC process. Love that, Angela. I would have stood on that soapbox with you for the next 10 years, I swear. All right. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Catherine, and she's going to talk to us about making time for PLC work.
Thank you, Sudie. We're going to walk through a couple of quotes here just to kind of get us thinking about some aspects related to the challenges of finding that time, especially when we are putting together teams and when the participants here are not all in positions where they can determine the amount of hours and what has to be done with the time that's given to teachers. So we're going to take a look at a couple of quotes here first, and then we will move into an activity just to help you assess what's already in place and how you can use time that you already have to determine if anything else needs to be added. So you can take a second here and just read the quote that's on the screen. Time is a significant issue for faculties who wish to work together collegially, and it has been cited as both a barrier when it is not available and a supportive factor when it is available by staffs engaging in school improvement. So when you think about the current situation at your school, is it a barrier? Is it being supported? Is it kind of a combination of both? Where do you think you are as far as that end of a continuum of whether or not there is time allotted? And you can go ahead and unmute and share if you'd like.
For us in the part-time adult education teacher world, I think it's a barrier in terms of the people. We're limited to a certain block of time at the end of the day where people may or may not have full focus other than their class, because our part-time teachers, they come in, they've worked a full-time day, they come, they're focused on getting ready for their class, and now planning time needs to be added to that. So we do add time, but sometimes I worry that even making time available, teachers may not have, just literally may not have enough bandwidth to focus in on what we need in the evenings. So for us, I think it's both. I mean, we are willing to give the time, to allot the time, but I do worry that sometimes enough time may not be available just based on the schedules for part-time teachers.
Yeah, so you bring up, the never-ending challenge that we face in adult ed of having mostly part-time teachers. And as you mentioned, a lot of them are full-time K-12, and that's true for us also in Napa. And you bring up a great point about the time of day that we get together to have these gatherings, the same way that we see our students being fatigued at the end of the day when we're expecting them to learn. Our teachers are the same. When we come together, we just in Napa, we just had our winter conference, and they were all between, the earliest one was at 3:30, I think, but most of them were 5 to 8:30. And our teachers are already back from winter break, and we saw the same thing. So right about like 7:30, 7:45, we could see everybody kind of lagging. So that's a great thing to consider when you're planning that time, is even if we do have time available, is it possible to do it earlier in the day? That's a great thing to consider. Thank you. Anyone else like to chime in here before we move on?
I think for us, it's just a problem um, that we have almost like two kinds of faculty, and it doesn't matter if among the adjunct or the part-time specifically, that there are some who just don't have the time because of their other work to get involved in anything. And so, and then there are others who have the time. And when we have critical critical issues coming up, then they're not the ones that are getting informed, and they tend to be the ones who need to know about this the most. I mean, I find, we just started our term this week, and I'm finding that out right now as assistant program chair, because we've had a lot of meetings where a lot of people are getting informed. We've been providing these meetings, and they're paid because they can be part of your flex, your flex, you can chalk that up for flex. And then like others will like walk up to me and say, "Hey, I have no idea what's going on." And it's like we've explained these things like over and over again. And a lot of them are recorded, so they can be the recordings are available. But the one, and those are the ones who come up to me and say, "Hey, they're the ones that need to be in these things most of all."
Yeah, so sometimes that barrier can be the people who do have the time perhaps are not the most receptive ground. We're sort of sowing seed, and we can put out the same information, put out the same seed in different types of ground, and people retain it, or it just goes, kind of right past them. So that can be difficult because that's not something that we can control. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next one here. There we go. Had a little bit of a delay. All right, so go ahead and read this one. Teachers are more likely to apply new instructional strategies and embed improved practices in school culture if they receive immediate feedback and support while implementing the new strategies in their classrooms. Teachers need regular opportunities for reflection, dialogue, and problem solving at the same time the students are in school. Is there anything that stood out to you when you read that? Any particular words or phrases?
Yeah, Yvonne.
Yeah,
I think
go
it's
ahead.
interesting this thought, and I have been thinking about that. Sometimes when I started teaching, I had offered the opportunity to observe other instructors, and I think that helps me as an instructor to see what I want or I don't want to do in my own class. So I think if we had more of these opportunities, we could, reflect. And it's a practical tool, because sometimes, as Eric say, we have no time, or we do. It depends on the case. But most of the times, adjuncts, we do not have time because we have to jump from campus to campus, or from one class to another. So I think this way of these chances to reflect on that way, practical way, will be uh, more valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it can be a great part of that learning of, what works for students, what do we need to adjust sometimes when we can step out of our own classroom, literally, not just mentally, but, see what's happening and figuring out how can peer observation be planned into PLC work? That's another challenge of time, right? Yeah, thank you. Anyone else want to comment on this?
I just wanted to mention that as you were reading it, Catherine, it almost reminded me of my students, and how
Yes,
like
exactly.
teachers are very much like students when we're learning, right? Like teachers become students when they're learning, right? And so it was almost like you were reading this, and I know you were reading it about teachers, but it was almost like I'm listening to it about being about my students and how they want to learn something and immediately practice it. Like they don't want to learn something for 2 or 3 hours in class and then go home and practice. It's like a give and take in the moment.
Yes. And that's what I was seeing too. And it's helpful to think of when we are learning how to conduct PLC work, we are students. And the same way that within the PLC process, when we get to the point where we can use common formative assessments, the whole point is to give students that feedback before the end of the unit. So as you have pointed out, that parallel is right there between the process of the PLC staff participants and what we're trying to do with students as far as are they learning what we want them to learn and how do we pivot and adjust so that we can address it before these things are solidified. Yes, great, thank you. Okay, let's look at the third one here.
Catherine, Angela has her hand up.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, Angela.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too, the conversation reminds me of ways to create those experiences for teachers when you have a small campus and when you don't have Java-like people on the same campus. And I used to have this when I supervised a statewide program where we had like one teacher in one location and one teacher like many miles away, so there wasn't the opportunity to have peer observation. And even though I have one campus now, we do have situations where we have like a standalone teacher and there is not another teacher like that teacher at the campus teaching, a similar topic. So looking for opportunities, maybe pairing up with other schools where we could have some of that peer observation happening. I think it just, a light bulb went off like, oh yeah, I could do that when it's challenging to have that opportunity in my campus. For teachers. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yes, one of the things that our activity will help us with is prompting us to think about how we can use technology as far as time. Is it possible to let people observe via technology? So via a device like Zoom or something like that. And then also thinking about how can we let our teachers in an interdepartmental type of system observe from each other? Is it necessary that topically it's the same? For example, if we are asking our teachers to follow a format like WIPIA, where we're going through the same sort of structure of delivering content, perhaps it's possible for teachers to observe each other as far as that process, because the content might not be dependent on the teacher from another department being able to go in and see, wow, this teacher had a great warm up. It got people ready. They were able to introduce the topic in a really effective way. So if you have teachers who are comfortable interdepartmentally like that, that can be a really great asset. Takes a little bit more planning, but sometimes that can be a great experience. Okay, so let's take a minute and look at this next quote here.
Sorry about that, Catherine. That was me and my overuse.
That's okay. It was being weird for me earlier, so it's fine. Time is a necessary condition for effective professional learning communities. However, it appears from the research that finding time in schools is correlated with the motivation of the school to genuinely engage in PLC work. And the first thing that pops out there to me is that this is, of course, just referring to the entire institution, just in general, right? Using the term the school. And sometimes there can be differing ideas and perhaps even some friction if we have some participants who are highly motivated and then others who are not. So figuring out how to make this process work when everyone is at a different stage along that motivation line can be difficult, especially if the people who are highly motivated are the ones who perhaps are not in a position to make decisions about things like that. Is there anything that stood out to you about what's presented here on this slide?
Catherine, I'd like to say something about motivation of the school. I can remember a few years ago, it was quite a number of years ago that we were getting cut financially and that um, we were really suffering with students. And yet our principal said, we will have professional learning communities. What, what do we want is quality, not quantity. And so she actually, because of time features for our teachers, she actually dedicated one day that she canceled classes. And it was that day that there were no classes, and we actually met as a whole school. And that continued on for many years because of the idea of quantity versus quality. And if we don't address some of the features that we need to address in our school, then we're just doing quantity. We're just doing the same old thing, but we haven't looked at the quality of our school. So that motivation is really important because it's very easy to put it aside and say, well, we'll just put that and continue on. We won't meet because we need this or that.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. That's really something to think about, especially right at the beginning as you're getting started. It might seem overwhelming. You might think, oh, gosh, we need, 12 hours a month. And just starting small with that single hour, if you're using it efficiently and it's well planned out and following that idea that Karen's mentioning as far as quality over quantity, it can still be extremely effective. Yes, thank you. So when we think about this process of putting this system in place of PLC work, where we're focusing on student learning, what's happening in class, are students learning what we want them to learn? How will we know if they've learned it? What will we do for the ones who haven't learned it? And what will we do for the ones who have learned it? When we're engaging in that process, that could also involve, as Sudi mentioned earlier, perhaps work connected to WASC or something that we see come out of the data of perhaps our teachers need some professional development for teaching reading or teaching some specific tool for writing instruction. When we think about how much time is really needed, what are your thoughts about that? Is this something that you've already encountered with your trying to put your leadership group together? Have you talked about how much time do we need as a guiding coalition? How much time do we need to meet to then plan to have, what to plan, what kind of data that we can gather, and then time to then look at the data and analyze it, and time to address gaps for our students who might need help? How much time is really needed for that? And it can be helpful to think of this as thinking about, where do we start? What do we already have? And that's something that, at least for my team, has come up in the coaching. You're with a district who has these flex hours built in for teachers, so they already have access to that. But even as Karen mentioned, when you're starting with that 1 hour, how much time is really needed for that? And this can depend on issues of location and what data you're starting with. Lots of different varying factors here. So we're going to point your attention to handout 2.
Catherine, we're not doing that activity. It's just there as a reference. This activity, making time for PLC work, is in Moodle. It was actually due today, but most have not done it yet, which is okay. It's been busy holiday season.
That's fine. So we'll just reference this, and do we know who has done it, or should we briefly mention it? And
look, or we could just go by honor code. Raise your hand if you've already done the making time for PLC work activity. Nobody. Which is okay.
I know We looked at it. I don't know, was it something in Moodle that we actually had to do, or was
You
it
were
one that
supposed
you?
to do it like just access the handout, go and actually do the activity together. You don't have to upload anything in Moodle and then just let your coaches know how that went.
So I'll just reference it real quickly because there are some things there that are offered as ideas. Karen already mentioned one. In part 2 of that handout, it covers making additional time and thinking about is there something that we can adjust that's already present in our schedule without having to necessarily add time? So how can we, um, is there something that we can do where we could possibly, cancel one class or think about using substitutes, or can we adjust if students are being taken out to do CASAS post testing or something like that? What time can we leverage that's already built into the schedule, sort of repurposing something in that way? Would you add anything to that, Karen and Sudi?
I might add that I'm sure many schools have staff meetings, and our staff meetings have now become at the end of our PLC a staff huddle. And we actually get up and huddle, and the principal gives all the information she needs, and there's questions and answers. And we found that the huddle really, it just kind of brings everybody together, and it takes people out of their seat, and it's just giving that information, and it isn't laborious. A lot of the information is also passed on technically with with either a text or an email. So our staff meetings are now PLC meetings with a little huddle at the end just to exchange information and ask questions.
And it's been a while since I've been in an active PLC program, unfortunately, but I basically learned from the best, Karen. And we repurposed our department meetings and turned those into our PLC meetings. And what I found was that there were a lot of things that we would cover in the meeting that was just me putting out information that I could just as easily stick in their box or email. And trust people to read their emails as opposed to wasting time in the meeting. And what I found was that they were reading the emails, they were looking at stuff. They're grown-ups, they know how to do their work. And so we freed up a lot of time just for PLCs by repurposing those department meetings. And then for all staff meeting days, which we would have once a quarter, the first half, it was usually 2 hours. The first hour would be PLC specific time. And the second hour, we would spend like a good 15, 20 minutes, just each PLC sharing out where they are and what they need and et cetera. And then the last 45 minutes was just like everybody's business, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think just I loved Karen's suggestion back then, and I still do, repurposing existing meetings to making them more meaningful for the teachers, I think was the most beneficial thing for us.
Yes, and something I find that really helps me as far as, what is happening in the time that we are together is really helping myself to understand differentiation in what happens in sort of a staff kind of informational, here are deadlines coming up, here's what we need from you, here are changes in such and such schedule, thinking of those as, okay, here's informational kind of staff meeting work, and then taking part of that time and making it student centered, right? What are we looking at in this area of time? Are we working on CFAs? Are we looking at some data that helps us understand students' current situation? And just taking that time in as the handout uses the term creative approaches, right? So these creative approaches of, as you've also said, just repurposing that time and kind of thinking it as just puzzle pieces that we're just kind of moving around to perhaps have the same outline, but just looking at rearranging them.
And it also could be that I know our principal now every Monday, she puts out the message for the week. If she's going to be, first of all, in town, what's her schedule, and then due dates. And I find that now teachers already look for that in the morning on Monday morning, and they're pretty abreast to what's happening for the week. And if there's something like we're having a WASP visit in March, so she's always reminding them about WASP coming and how we're going to use our PLCs for that. But I think if if you have a regular time, like on a Monday morning or Thursday afternoon, whatever, and post those need to for the next week, it's really helpful for teachers.
Yes.
If it comes and, oh, I forgot, and it's in
Mhm.
the morning and you need it in the afternoon, that's not going to work. So I think the more communication, not less communication, more communication with teachers, and they forget, oh, I'm supposed to have CASAS, everybody ready for CASAS. Oh, I forgot. But if you're continually reminding them to look at their emails on Monday, and then it becomes a regular routine, then people are in the know.
Yeah.
Yes, and we do something like that. It happens on Fridays, and it's sort of the idea of instead of having a staff meeting where we do that and take time for it, can we put it in an email like that? And then can we take that staff time and use it for PLC work?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, our college has this whole system for strictly regulating professional development. And each faculty member has the amount of hours they teach in a week of paid professional development time, but no one can mandate which of these they do. And there are just dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of these activities, and they'll just choose one, whether that really pertains that much to what they do, just to get it out of the way, and it's online and at a convenient time. But we cannot it's not possible for us, according to our union contract, to say this everyone's going to be at this meeting at this time to talk about this thing. We are not allowed to do that. But we have thought about how we can. Our dean is implementing these level meetings, and our plan is to try to get into those and become integral to those meetings.
And I also want to, Jacques Lecor is not on the team anymore. He's kind of stepped back a little bit and is living his best life doing other things. But one of the things that he used to talk about all the time is when he was an Oakland adult, how they had a similar issue with not having time and et cetera, and people not wanting to do it. So they negotiated with their union to include the PLC time in their contract. So they were guaranteed to have PLC time that was paid. And that was what made the difference for the union, was like, it's guaranteed paid time that they're doing for this in addition to the time they already had. It wasn't like they were taking anything away. So that might be something worth considering. Just if that's something that you guys need to do. I know with the colleges, that is a little bit of a harder jump to make sometimes, but I mean, just saying that it is possible, because we do know of school districts who have done exactly that and they negotiated to make it work.
That's
Yvonne,
interesting.
yeah. Yvonne, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, what Eric is saying is a fact, it's true. But I heard that you're gonna have, if I'm not mistaken now, department meetings. So maybe we could push ourselves through there. And
yeah, that's what I meant by the level
Yeah.
meet. The
Okay.
dean wants to, I mean, you already have that kind of, but the dean wants to formalize it.
Okay.
And so our plan is we're in addition to our other meetings that we're going to have, is we're going to try to become integral to these level meetings.
I think that's smart, Eric. I think that's really smart. And Angela's putting some great stuff in the chat too. They're going to be purpose monthly department meetings and staff meetings. So teachers have two opportunities for PLC work. They could also explore additional time as teachers express the need. They've got new positions starting in February for a parapro who could cover classes and pull out teachers while teachers meet if needed. And then there's also pulling out students while the teachers meet as well. So lots of creative opportunities and ideas to think through, like, who can you leverage? How can you get these things done? Are your instructional assistants and aides included in your PLC process? If not, they could cover your classes while you're doing that. I've known some schools who they schedule their testing time. I think Catherine mentioned that a minute ago, using your CASAS testing time and things like that for time for your PLC to meet. If you already know there's a block of an hour and a half or none of you have students, that might be a good time to leverage that. But there's a lot of different and creative ways you can work. There's not a one size fits all. You have to do what's best for your program, for your students, for your faculty, and within the parameters of what your district and the unions associated with it allow. So really great conversation. Thank you, Catherine. All right, so now we're getting to homework report outs. We know Jose did his homework because he nodded when I asked, but did everybody else do their homework? Just kidding. We know that that's at least one team down. So I don't remember if hold on, let me just double check something really quickly. Yeah, I did. Okay, if you go to handout number 3, which is your team feedback protocols, I just want to call that to your attention really quickly. So what I want to do, and you can do this as much or as little as you want. I'm not going to be, I know Karen has pointed out that I harp on it a little bit too much sometimes in the past. I'm not going to too much today, but I will bring it up. So we want to practice using, and there's a weird box on top of my box. So this handout number 4 is actually team feedback protocols. I don't know how that just happened. I thought I fixed it, but maybe I have the wrong version open. Anyway, but handout 4 is actually team feedback protocols. And so there's some guidance here on how to have these type of communications with your teammates when they're sharing information with you. And so since we're in this nice little closed environment and it's only just us and our little group, we can practice doing this within this environment before doing it more so with our PLCs. And the point of this is to use non-offensive and helpful language to provide feedback to people that moves things forward and avoids offense. And so, for example, giving specific and direct compliments. When you see something good, we have a tendency as grown-ups sometimes to focus on what's going wrong and not always celebrate and congratulate and talk about and raise up things that are going really well. And in PLCs, when you're doing an ongoing cycle of inquiry, if you're not celebrating the small victories, it can feel like it's just work all the time and never is fun. So make sure you're celebrating those small victories and acknowledging when someone does something good. So the example we have here is I really admire the way you think outside the box. Your idea to whatever the idea was great. Your attention to detail is awesome. I hadn't noticed, insert item here. But notice that we're being explicit in what it was that they did or that we appreciated and giving that feedback back. The other thing is making sure you're stating your opinions in I statements. So instead of being like, Isabel, you didn't quite address blah, blah, blah. I would be more so like, I have some thoughts about, or if I understood you correctly, Isabel, or I didn't understand, because that's putting the onus on me. Remember, communication is a cycle that's not only about what is stated and put out, but also how it's received. And in order for a cycle of communication to be successful, it has to be interpreted and understood with the original intent. So sometimes it's not always the person delivering the message. It might be that we're misunderstanding. It can also be that if I'm the one delivering it, maybe I didn't deliver it appropriately. But giving someone an opportunity to ask them a question or give them feedback so they can respond and clarify, it's helpful. You also want to gently probe logic. Sometimes, let's be real, we'll be in meetings and something does not make sense. Someone has an idea that they think is great and you're like, wait, what? So you want to gently probe that logic instead of being like, dang, Eileen, that made 0 sense. That would probably hurt Eileen's feelings. And then she would never want to have a meeting with me. And then she'd have a bad feeling about PLCs. We don't want that for Eileen. So instead, I would gently probe, Eileen, what led you to that conclusion? What data did you find? Right? Or could you explain the steps that led to that decision? Was this connected to this other piece? How can I help? Like those type of things. We want to gently probe to ask. And also think about tone when you say things. Can you help me understand what led you to that decision versus tell me what led you to that decision? Sound completely different, right? And so thinking about how you deliver messaging also makes a difference. Non-aggressive language is also important. I'm wondering if, can you help me understand your thinking here? That kind of thing. We want to make sure that that the person we're talking to understands we're just trying to understand. We're not trying to tear you down. And that's not the space for a PLC. It's not its intent. It's not to be a one-up party or to supersede our colleagues. It's for all of us to learn and grow together, right? You also want to check for understanding. If I'm hearing correctly, the primary goal is, or am I clear in the next steps? Eric, what I heard was, right? And just understanding what it is and then checking to make sure that we've got it right. And then make sure you're explaining it if you're on the opposite end. You'll first do this. We'll first plan, then we're going to teach it, then we're going to assess it, and then we'll reflect it. Does anybody have questions? That kind of thing. Just put that information out there and give folks an opportunity to reflect and respond. And then give concrete examples. I'm wondering if we started with X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z. And the point of that is just disagreement is not enough to hold up a process, right? Just because you don't like it. If you don't like something, what do you think would be a good alternative? What is your suggestion to moving it forward? Otherwise, we just kind of get stuck and we stay in that traffic jam forever. So instead, we want to think through how can we keep moving forward? What suggestions can I offer? In my old school, we used to do whatever. I was talking to someone at San Jose Adult and they do this X, Y, and Z. This school has this kind of data. Maybe we could do that. Fresno Adult has externship programs for all of their IET, and it's right there in-house. Everybody does it right there. Maybe we could try something like that. Like just giving examples of what it is that you're wanting to see to help people understand your perspective. So what I'm asking is that as we go through our report outs and not just today, but in future, as we're working through our report outs and you're listening to your colleagues, to try to remember to use team feedback protocols just as practice. Now, I don't want you to be unnatural about it. Say it how you would say it, but do it in a kind way. That way, when you're back with your PLC team, when they say something that you're like, what? You don't go, what? Instead, you say, can you help me understand? Does that make sense? All right. So moving forward, oh, I don't know what I just did here. All right, so we just covered that. So moving forward, when we're talking about unwrapping the standards, this is just a quick recap. It helps us to identify the essential concepts and skills found within the standard that we want the student to have when they complete their time with us. We want them to help manage the standards, and it helps to make them usable when we're unpacking it. No one wants to read the whole standard out unless you're a nerd like me who likes saying things like, "Oh, you can ask and answer questions about key details in a text." Yeah, nobody wants to do that, right? So don't be Sudi. Be better. It also helps focus the instruction and makes the standards more digestible and understandable so that you can integrate it into your instruction more easily. Enables teachers to effectively create curriculum that's connected to the standards. And then it links the standards to the common assessment that you'll be creating later, not today. But once you understand that unpacked piece, you create your objective. Now I know what I want my students to achieve and I can plan my common formative assessment around that. And we talked about the unwrapping process. You first think about what it is, the one you want to unwrap. And so let's go ahead and talk about, or we did talk about it, but now I want to hear from you. So we normally do this as a breakout, but because we are all here together and we're such a small group, let's just have a group discussion around this. So, and either team can respond in whichever order you choose. But let me know, what standard did you guys unwrap? Which one did you go with first? Who wants to go first? Colton or San Diego Continuing Ed? Anybody can volunteer as tribute. It's safe here to do so.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Jose.
So I looked at the CCRS standards and I was thinking about the IET program we have, and then from my meetings with the nursing instructor, I was thinking about like what we want our students to be able to do.
Yeah.
So CCR Anchor 1,
Mhm.
I decided to unpack that one because it says prepare for and participate effectively in a range of conversations and collaborations with diverse partners, building on others' ideas and expressing their own clearly and persuasively.
Which level within CCR Anchor 1?
And I chose level, sorry, I'm looking at the standard. SL 1.1.
Speaking and listening 1.1?
And
Gotcha.
then just because I know that like in nursing, if you don't understand something, they have to be able to ask questions to clarify. And then I chose C and B SL 3.1.
Level C and level B and level C?
Yes, level
So
B
your
and level C.
students are like kind of coming, like kind of intermediate students?
Yeah, one of my ESL student is intermediate.
Got it. Okay, that makes complete sense. So what approach did your team use to unpacking the standard, and what worked well or could have gotten a little bit better? What do you think? And Colton and Jose doesn't have to answer for all of Colton. Feel free to weigh in, other Colton members. Although you can keep talking, Jose. Just saying.
And then I just highlighted the verbs in red. And like prepare was one of them, participate, and then the nouns are conversations, ideas. And then that's about as far as I got. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
With unpacking the standard.
Okay. And then go ahead, Angela. I saw you on mute.
I was just going to say the challenge that we have when we're looking at these kinds of activities is our teachers, we have like one IET teacher and two ESL teachers. I think our ESL group has more opportunity to work collaboratively. And our GED teachers teach different subjects. So that's a part of working with our coaches on how we approach the unpacking process when our teachers are they're not we don't have like a large group where they're all working in the same content, you know. So that's
Yeah,
the
so you have
challenge we have.
a lot of singletons that are
We have
that
a
are
lot of singletons. So
yeah, that
Jose was working on his unpacking process with his group, and our CTE teacher, she's a partner. She works for CRIROP ROP. So she's
Mhm.
not a part of this process directly, although she's interested in learning as we go, but she doesn't work with us
Yeah.
directly. She comes, she teaches CNA, she leaves.
Yeah, I hear
She
you.
collaborates, but
She
it's not
collaborates with the IET program, but isn't necessarily with the
exactly, but
PLC. I
not
get you.
with these processes, you know, as in as detail as what we're doing.
That makes complete sense. I also kind of like the approach that you guys took, which was that like allowing Jose to do this separately with his team, with the folks that he works with, even though they may not necessarily be part of this training in this process, because that means he's getting to apply something he's going to use in real life with his actual students and really move that forward. So you made it meaningful for you. So I think that's important. Did you find that there was any team building and development that occurred as a result of unpacking your standard?
Yeah, I found that it really like made our meetings focused and productive, and um we're able to, create tangible formative assessments um that we can share with each other, and then just um adjust if we find trends or patterns that we notice the students are struggling with.
That makes sense. That makes complete sense. So now that you've addressed the questions that were on handout 4, do you want to share what you've unpacked? You can share your screen. You're permitted. It's allowed.
Yeah, I'll share it right now. Let's see, settings, share screen. Oh, sorry, I'm sharing two screens.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
uh, okay, can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is how I unpack the standards. Um, I really like standard 2. Actually.
So one thing I will point out with the CCR is
Mhm.
that you want to look at the levels below and unpack those, each one of those levels, because those are what helps you get to the overall anchor, right? And
Oh,
so I see,
okay.
yeah, so I see that you've identified which standards and et cetera. And it's not that it's bad to unpack the anchor. That's totally okay. So like if anything, you did extra credit. But but you also want to unpack the specific standards you're looking at because those level standards, those are the ones that you're going to make your objective out of and that you're going to share with your students in student-friendly language. And then so that overarching anchor tells you like this, in order to, once you accomplish all of these levels, then your students should be able to do this anchor standard, right?
Mhm.
So just putting that out there.
Thank you.
No problem. But you did a great job at unpacking. Um, did you guys write objectives for your unpack standards?
I did not write objectives yet. Um, I think like I still need help with that. I'm not even going to pretend. Um,
Well, that's a good thing. I think I included in the handouts if I'm not losing my mind. I'm pretty sure I did. An example. Nope, I didn't. It was in, oh, it's in the day 1 handouts. You have the, or day 2 handouts. You have the example of the unpack standard that includes the objective and all of that kind of stuff. So that is in there for you to use. And you will need those objectives because we're going to continue building upon this work in a few minutes. So, and it doesn't take long to write objectives and and you'll have a coach in the room with you to work with you. So you're not going to be all off by yourselves. But
thank you.
really good. Really good job. You made it very clear you understand the unpacking process, which is the big piece right here. So, all right, awesome. Okay, so I am going to not even bother taking back over screen share. We're gonna go now to San Diego. Hey there, San Diego. Same questions that are on handout 4. Which one standard did you unpack? How did it go? Did that improve your team building, etc.? And then please share your unpack standard.
I don't know if anyone in my team got around to unpacking standards. I think we focused more on um how on our coalition and like how are we gonna introduce ourselves to our college. I don't know if my other team members did it or not. I know I personally didn't unpack a standard. I didn't have time.
Did anybody else on the team unpack a standard?
No, like I am like Isabel, like we were like focusing on checking how we are gonna do like the connect with the other members.
Mhm.
So we are planning to do how we are going to introduce. So I did that part either.
Okay, so we will need to take some time to do that because you're going to need that for the activity that's coming up in a few minutes. So what I'm going to do then is give you guys breakout room time. Maria, I'm sorry because I know this is unplanned, but it's the agency teams, which I think you already have set up and assigned. So let's give them about 15 minutes. And we're going to put our coaches with our team so that they can go ahead and do that unpack so that we can do the rest of the activity. And just as a reminder, of course, we want you to get your guiding coalition done and that kind of stuff. But some of these homework assignments do build upon each other. So we want to make sure that we get some of the homework assignments done so that so we don't have to do this in the training time. Okay. So we're going to give you 15 minutes to just do a quick unpacking. Pick the standard that you want. I think most of you identified the standards you want to focus on at the end of day 2, if I recall correctly. But if you didn't, that's okay. Pick a standard that applies to you, unpack it. Jose, you've already got a good head start, so you guys just need to write some objectives connected to the standards you identified underneath. Karen, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, I think it would really be important that they use that handout and actually unpack it because then they can proceed. So could you show the handout that they
Yeah.
could use
Hold on, I have
so
to reshare.
that we're all kind of on the same page?
Absolutely. Pull it back. Where did it just go? Sorry, I have too
And
many.
I think it'll make
too
the
many things
process very
open.
simple if we do that.
Well, I would if I could find Microsoft Word on my shared list. Oh, there it is. Found it.
There we go.
All right, so this is the
From
handout Karen's talking about. That it's basically a graphic organizer. You're going to list your standard, write out the skills and the concepts through what particular context would be like through text, through media, through reading, through speaking, through listening, like it says it in the standard for you. And then the cognitive demand, where we talked about depth of knowledge levels at our last training together. So you're going to want to think about what DOK level it is. If you don't, that's not the priority right now, though. We want to unpack the standard and we want to write an objective right now. If you don't get to DOK level, that's okay. But the main thing we need right now is our standard and our objectives that go with that. Okay. All right. So Maria, are we ready to open the breakouts?
Yes, we're ready. And please note, once I open them, you will be automatically placed in your breakout.
Okay, so we're going to take 15 minutes to do that, and your coach will be in the room with you.
All right, here we go.
Belen, are you seeing the join button?
Oh, she goes.
Welcome back. Coaches, do we get our standards unpacked?
Could we have 5 more minutes?
You need
please?
5 more minutes?
Yes.
So if we got about halfway through, Sudi, if we have more time, we can use it, but if we need to move on, that's fine.
We can use this time because this is a fundamental piece. And so if we need to shift big idea and essential questions, for example, to do it with as an activity that coaches have to do with you next month, that's okay if that's what we have to do, but we got to get this foundational piece done first, I think. What do you think, Karen? You're muted. Karen, you're muted.
I think talking with our group and honing in on specific standards is a good idea. So if we
So
have
yeah,
more
we can use
time,
this
Yeah,
time for that.
I think 5 minutes is fine. We're just kind of filling in the chart or the
Okay, and Karen, how much time do you guys need?
we're done, but we're talking more.
Okay. So let's
Yeah.
give them 5 more minutes, Maria, and then we'll do as much as we can today. And if what we can't get to, we'll do with our coaches. That's the great thing about having these awesome coaches. We can pivot like this if we need to.
All right. Okay.
I-
So you can put us back. Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
jump in.
and here we go.
Thank you. Welcome back, friends. How'd it go?
All right.
We're good? Okay, good. All right, so let's start
It
with
went fast, but I think we were kind of working on like our second and third objectives. So yeah.
okay, cool. So do we want to share our unpack standard? Are you ready to do that now? How are you feeling?
Yeah, we have a very simple one, but we've made a more of a talk of the concept of unpacking and which ones would be better to unpack. Listening, speaking, reading or writing, and where we would have more evidence. So
Oh, very cool. And where did you land on with that, Colton? How are you feeling, Colton?
We're good. We're feeling good. The idea of approaching when we have a lot of singletons and we have, lots of different types of program that really focusing in on writing as kind of something we can all do collectively and starting small so that it gives those teachers who are not a part of this core planning some more experience and having the ability to give feedback, in that learning process with them. So looking at writing was something we talked about as a starting point with our
Yeah.
larger groups.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's the key point when you have singletons is figuring out what do we have in common that we can collaborate on that helps with student success. That typically is basic literacy skills or critical thinking or numeracy, right? So like your reading, your writing, your mathematics, like those type of things are normally things that you can focus on. So I think writing is a really great starting point. Okay. And then San Diego, how'd it go with San Diego? Did I lose Catherine? Oh, you're just in a different spot on my screen. I was used to you being right up next to me. I'm like, where'd she go?
Yeah, so we first looked at the example and just looked at we're just extracting the different parts, and then we chose CCR anchor to
Well,
level.
don't report out for them. No.
Okay. Go ahead. You guys go.
But thank you for letting me know how it went from your perspective.
Okay,
That was my
so
question.
I could say it,
Thanks,
and
Yvonne.
then if anybody could add up. So yes, we choose as a standard the CCR Anchor 2 Level B.
Mm-hmm.
We focus on writing. Skill verbs we use was write, introduce, develop, use, provide, and then the concept nouns will be write informal text, introduce a topic, develop a topic, provide use words and provide statements. Correct?
Great. And so those are really great, like beginning points for actually writing out your objectives. And that was something that most students would be able to understand what you meant. So that was great. Good
The
job.
lesson objectives will be introduce a topic in writing.
Students will be able to introduce a topic in writing. See,
Yeah,
that's
and
beautiful.
students will be able to develop a topic with Jesus, I can understand my writing.
Happens to me too.
With facts, definitions, and details, and students will be able to use words and phrases. Students will be able to provide a statement.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
and something that we talked about was just understanding that when a standard has multiple verbs involved, we can use objectives to pull those out individually. So
Okay.
so in the example, if it said, in the example handout, it says students will be able to ask and answer questions about key details in the text. You might not be able to do that in one session. So you'll have one objective that is students will be able to ask questions, and then a separate objective that is students will be able to answer those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we kind of briefly went over that, and we're going to skip over this part because we don't have time. But we're going to talk a little bit about the big ideas and essential questions. We still have a little bit of time left, so we might have enough time for you to at least get started with with those after you finish writing your objectives. And again, your coach will be in the room with you. Hold on. My Zoom is doing that weird thing again. Give me 1 second. This is the second time today this has happened to me. Don't know why it is angry with me, but it is. Okay, now we're back to normal. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Karen is going to take us through big ideas and essential questions, but let me give her slide control again. I had to stop and reshare. And then if we have time, which I hope we will, we'll take some time. You'll have time in your breakout groups to be able to work on your big idea and essential question after Karen explains what that is. But before you do that, for those who did not finish with your objectives, prioritize writing your objectives first. And if we don't have time to get all of it done, that's totally okay. But I want to make sure we're scaffolding this properly and that we're not overwhelming you with jumping to the next thing before you feel really on your feet with that first thing. So Karen, over to you.
Okay, so big ideas and essential questions. I never thought of this for many years in my teaching of, they're adults, they're here to learn, and they don't need to know why they're learning it because they know they want to learn it, huh? So I know in elementary and in high school, students will, why do I need this anyway? I'm going to be a basketball player, or I'm going to be an electrician. Why do I need all of this? And so this concept of big ideas and essential questions have become important in learning, especially when you have the student answer the essential question. So, or you write the essential question and the student answers with big ideas. So let's just kind of look, what do you mean by big ideas? And the big ideas are concepts more than skills. They're written in student-friendly words. They make you think in a deeper level.
Sorry, Karen, I went back because we skipped the slide.
And what's that?
I went back one because we skipped the first slide.
Ah, am I in the right spot?
You are now because I went back one slide.
Oh, okay. Sometimes I double click and that happens. Thank you. And why do we have to learn this anyway? And that's always the big question. Why do we have to learn this anyway? So trying to connect these big concepts so that it's not these little things we need to remember because we tend to forget, but the bigger concepts. And reflect most important student understanding for the entire list of the unwraps concepts and skills. So we're going to take a, excuse me. And so where do you get the big ideas? They're from the concepts more than the skills. Oh, I see where I messed up. They're written friendly student words. They produce a deeper level of understanding of instead of mere recall of information, because you're actually asking, why is this important? And expect students to discover the ideas of their own relevant to student lives. I can remember last quarter I taught summary, and I wrote on the board, students will be able to summarize, and it was a certain article about health. And so the big idea would be summaries. What are summaries? Why do we need summaries? So just keep that in mind as we move along. And remember that these are relevant to student lives. Okay, so usually when we have a big idea, a good way to remember this is, for example, in Anchor Standard 1, Level A, ask and answer questions about key details in a text. Well, big ideas are often represented by the words help. So the big idea of a main idea is it helps me know exactly what the text is mainly about. Key detail helps me know more about the main idea, and each key detail helps support the main idea. Okay, so these are kind of the bigger picture of looking at the standard. All right. So when you're looking at the ELP, and it's standard 1, level 1. Identify a few words and phrases in oral communications, simply spoken in written text. What are the big ideas? Well, listening carefully helps me learn new words. That's a big idea, right? The more you listen, the more new words you can learn. Written text helps me learn new words about a topic. Very simple types of a big idea. Okay, and so these big ideas are brief, 5 to 10 words. They're conceptual, cannot be answered factually. It's all conjecture, goes beyond content to conjecture. It's the individual response, allows for all kinds of answers. No one right answer, and it's timeless, that it may apply to other fields of learning. So you take the word summary, and it's all of these, you know. It's a big idea to summarize. It can go through all fields of learning. People will answer questions about summary in different ways. So let's see what I mean by this. Okay. So you have the big idea like summary, or we had the reading about main idea, key details. So these essential questions now. So now we have the big idea, but now we have essential questions. And this probably should come first and then the big idea second, but we have it organized this way. So the essential question is, when I wrote this, I put, today we are going to be able to summarize an article, and I had the name of the article. And so the second thing I put on the board is, why is it important to summarize? That was my essential question. And I said, at the end of the lesson, you'll be able to answer this. And happily, everyone gave answers. It never were all the same, but they all gave an answer. And so summary became this bigger picture. People use it for this. People say they can do it. Oh, I can read an article and put something together quickly. I can fill out a form and summarize what's on that form and pull out those kinds of things. There was a very broad answer to why do we summarize. And so this ongoing conversation was very beneficial for not only the teacher knowing that people are getting the idea of what a summary can do for them, and you can summarize a lot of things, and also they're getting a bigger picture of it. So if you ask, what is a main idea? How do you know a main idea is really a main idea? What are key details? Why are they important? So if you were to put today we're going to identify the main idea and key details, your essential question could be, why? How do we know it's a main idea? What are key details? Why are they important? And so the concepts of these things become more ingrained instead of just having the answer of that particular article. So really those are the why we do the essential question, and then the students can actually answer with the big picture, with the main idea. Okay. So here is one. Identify key words and phrases in oral communication, simply spoken and written text. Why should I listen carefully to people talking? That could be one of your questions. And so, for example, if you were doing the listening and speaking, this would be, why should I listen carefully to people talking? And then you do a listening and speaking activity and you go, oh, wow. Lots of answers you will get. Lots of answers. Excuse me. How does written text help me learn a language? And if you're doing a writing, you can also have this as the question. Today we're going to write a summary of the health article we read. So, how does written text help me learn a language? So, all these kinds of questions written with your objective really lends itself to open up to more of a broader understanding of not only the article you're reading, but the concepts that you're going to use throughout your life. And so the ultimate goal for students is to answer the essential question with big ideas. So hopefully this little introduction of asking a question that you're going to have your objective and asking the question and then telling the students at the end, I want you to be able to answer this question, and there's no right or wrong answer. So I hope that you think about this. There's lots of reading about big ideas and essential questions, but I found it when I did this, light bulbs, you could actually see people, summaries, oh. And this was an advanced class. It was an intermediate high. So these light bulbs were continually going on and we had wonderful answers. So I would hope that when you look at your unpack standard, you might think of what would be the essential question and what would be some of the big ideas your students would answer. We might have time. Sudi, do we have time to do?
We do. I'm actually adjusting this because I'm just looking at it. And one of the things I keep forgetting is that there are so few teams that it takes us less time to get through activities than it typically does within the Institute. And so we actually can give more time for this activity so that we can finish unpacking our standard and do this activity.
Okay.
So, Maria, and that this is going to throw Maria off. Maria, I'm sorry. And thank you so much for your flexibility. We really appreciate you. And I owe you an edible arrangement. Okay. So can you please, and I'm good. I'm good for this. I promise I will get to you. Can you please update the breakout for 45 minutes to make sure they have time to finish with the unpack standard, work on their big idea and essential questions, and then ask any questions of their coach if they need to?
Yes, of course.
The best. Thank you.
Here are the instructions in the chat, and I'm ready with those breakout rooms. Are we ready to?
That was quick.
Because they're the same, right? Same breakout room?
They are the same.
Okay.
45 minutes. All right, so we're gonna go on our breakouts. Again, you'll have your coach there with you. Coaches, if you feel like they've got it on their own, feel free to come back. But if you want to stay with your team, that's okay too. So we're gonna go ahead and open those up. Don't forget to finish your unpack standard and your 3 objectives before you jump into your big idea and essential questions. And coaches, if they need more time, pop back in before the timer runs out and just let me know and we can extend it. We have plenty of time.
Okay, good.
Alrighty, and here we go.
Welcome back, friends. So during the breakout, Catherine and I had a conversation about why didn't we include the complete unpacking example? And then after I shared it with you, the updated one that I said use this version, I realized why we didn't, because it includes the common formative assessment and rubric as well. But now you have it. So try not to jump ahead. But if you do, I promise we'll only give you extra credit because you already did common formative assessment. All right, so let's talk about it. I want to hear what your big ideas and essential questions are. I'm going to stop sharing. So if you want to share your graphic organizer that has your unpack standard with your big idea and essential question, you are more than welcome to. Who would like to go first? Colton or, Angela, I'm muted first.
Oh yeah, I have to grab it. Jose took the notes and then he lost connection. So I'm gonna go into my Google and I'm gonna grab the sample.
No problem.
Can I just say one thing?
Of course.
We talked about when we left, right, as we were kind of getting into it, but we talked about how, as Karen mentioned, we posed the question to students at the beginning of the class.
Mhm.
By the end of the lesson, they have their answer, their big idea, and that there can be subtleties about how they answer that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So the essential question is posed to all students. It applies to
Right.
all students. Why should I be able to write informative text? Right? That was the anchor that we looked at. But a student could have an answer such as, I should be able to do this because it helps me. Al gave the idea of it helps me fill out my immigration form for my
Right.
test.
Their
And
big idea could be personal, right?
yeah, yes. And so I'll had some examples of that, and that's important to think about. That
I agree.
as Karen explained, the question is for everyone, but there can be subtleties of for adult students what the big idea is, why it helps them in their context, on their job, in their life, etc.
That is so true. And I also want to raise up something else really intelligent that Catherine said. She says a lot of intelligent stuff, so it's hard to keep up all the time. But what she just said is so true that the big idea might be personal to the student or be differentiated amongst the students, but the essential question is the same. But the other thing she mentioned when we were briefly chatting when she came back to the main room was how this really is an andragogical approach. This is really something that's especially like big ideas and essential questions in PLC should be used across the board. And it's something for K-12 that's relatively, that's like, they don't always necessarily think about the what's in it for me. It's this question the students always ask, like Kara mentioned earlier, why do I need to know this, right? But for our adult learners, the what's in it for me is really important. Our adult learners are intrinsically self-motivated. So they're going to do these things based on how it benefits them. So this is just a way to reinforce what is motivating them to acquire these particular skills and help them to explain to us what's motivating them and why does this matter to them. So thank you so much, Catherine, for that really great discussion earlier and for the that really important point that you just reinforced that Karen was sharing with us earlier. Thank you. So Jose popped the link into the chat. Angela, you ready to go?
Yeah, I am. I'm sure. And that was something as we were going through getting from the essential question to the big idea, I was a little confused about who's answering that big idea. Are we answering it for them? But knowing that this is something the students would be doing as you're going
Yeah.
through or finishing the lesson, that was
And when
helpful.
we're unpacking our standard and we're going through this whole process, the essential question is a really big important part that the PLC has to figure out. Understanding what potential big ideas there could be is helpful, but ultimately we don't want to shove our big idea down anybody's throat. We want them to understand what the big idea is for them. It's a really good point, Angela.
So we were looking at the Anchor Standard 2 for writing, level B, and unpacked it. Do you want me to go straight to the big ideas and the essential questions?
No, slow down. I was looking at your unpack. Go back. I haven't seen it. Your coach saw it already. This is the first time I'm
Okay.
seeing it. Scroll down just a little. Okay, introduce. Good. Oh, cool. Okay. All right. Now I'll carry on. Thank you.
Okay. So as we unpacked and we pulled out a few objectives, and the essential questions that we pulled out were related to the objectives. I mean, we could have had many more objectives depending on what the specific lessons are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to also clarify who's asking so that the teacher is asking those essential questions, kind of prompting the students. And those questions were, why do we have to write informative texts? What is the difference between an argumentative versus informative writing? Why do we have to include linking words, which was a part of that standard?
Standard, yeah.
What is the purpose of including a concluding statement, which is the last part of that standard that we would want the students to get to?
Mm-hmm.
And then we threw out some potential big ideas if we were students, going through this process, about why do we have to write informative text to convey information clearly? Using linking words helps us to connect ideas. An author might write for different purposes, like to convey opinion versus fact and details. And then what's the purpose of a concluding statement? To summarize for the reader.
Great. Good job. Good job, team.
And
So,
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add one of the things that was important for us, since we have different programs and singletons, that this is something that all of our programs could wrap around, and
Mhm.
a way for us to get our teachers focused in on something that's relevant to all of them, and then from here they can take it into other areas.
Yes, that's
Unpacking.
exactly right. Beautiful. Thank you, Colton. Great job. Great job. And thank you, Colton coaches that are here. All right, Team San Diego. Who's going to share screen for Team San Diego? Al looks like he really wants to based on the face he just made.
We don't have a because I didn't write it on the
You didn't
computer.
put it on the handout?
I was just on paper like old school.
Okay, well, can you talk us through what your unpack standard was and what your objectives are, and then give us your big ideas and essential questions?
Okay.
We can always adapt.
Okay, so we did it like Yvonne mentioned before about the write, introduce, and develop and provide information and topic, and mostly will be text. And the objectives were introduce a topic and writing, develop a topic, uh, linking words and phrases, and I forgot the other one because I didn't. I mean,
Wait,
like,
what was your, wait, remind me what your standard number was.
It's the same
I,
one.
It's the same standard? Did you guys randomly
yes,
pick the same standard? That's
Yes,
so funny.
yes,
we
That's
did.
so
Yeah.
funny. That
yes,
rarely
exactly.
happens when we have a big group and then have a little group and both of you pick the same thing as hilarious. It does make all of our lives easier though.
Yeah. So, well, we were like, our questions were, for example, like, what do I need to know how to write an informative test? And the big idea was like, because writing informative text helps me to share accuracy information. That was one.
Mhm.
And the other one was like, what do I need to develop a topic? And the answer was like, developing a topic helps me to express ideas and communicate.
Mhm.
And the other one, I didn't write it, but I was what do I need to use linking words and expressions? And we got it with Isabel. And what did because I couldn't write Isabel. Can you read it for me, please? Isabel.
Using linking words and phrases helps me to connect ideas effectively.
Good. Good. This is great.
Yeah.
All right. Good job, team. I mean, first of all, this was an activity in perseverance because you guys didn't have the homework done yet, but I mean, everybody's been busy. It's been a crazy year, but you managed to get it done and get the activities done, and we're all caught up with everything we need to cover today. And this is the benefit of a small but mighty group. I was saying to Maria right when we opened the breakout, I keep forgetting there's only 2 teams, so we don't need as much time for debriefs, and we don't need as much time, and there's not as many people asking questions because there's only 8 of you. So that worked out really well. Karen, you unmuted, so it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, I just really appreciate doing this with the team instead of doing this and having them do it. But I think
Mhm.
it's more effective if we actually, because then we can ask and answer questions.
Mhm.
And it just seemed more natural in doing this instead of giving it as an assignment, I guess. I
The unpacking the standard or
just
the big
felt
idea is
really
a question
good
of both.
about
Well,
doing
remember we did
it.
unpack a standard as a group together
Yeah,
back, but
but
that
as
was
a
all the
group.
way back in November. But the big
Yeah,
idea and essential question, we always plan to have Catherine and Karen in the room with you so you can
yeah.
talk
But
through
I
that.
really
So,
like doing it all together. It
yeah. And
just,
that's another thing that we can do more easily with a smaller group. Like if we
yeah,
have 8 teams, we don't have 8 coaches, so that'd be harder to spread out.
yeah.
So
It's so much easier. So I think we need to remember that when we're going through the next phases of this, that we can actually do a lot of things together.
we can. And also remember, you can leverage your coaching meetings for
Yes,
completing your homework assignments and activities too. So if you're doing an assignment and like, for example, if you go back to do the making time for PLC work and you're like, I'm stuck on this. bring that to your coaching meeting. Your coaches can absolutely help you walk through your homework, answer any questions. That's part of what they're there for. When we finish the institute, they're really there to help you with moving forward that implementation. But during the institute, they're here to help you get your guiding coalition set up and help you complete homework and activities so you really understand it intrinsically and internally. And you guys clearly did, because you did a fantastic job on your big ideas and essential questions. I just feel like we pulled it off. Like we were like, are we gonna have time? But you guys made the time, you got it done, and you did a fantastic job. So I'm very, very proud of this group. You are a small but mighty bunch. And you're also very pleasant to be around. So there's that. All right, so let's go ahead and carry on with our presentation and close out our afternoon, and then we'll come back together soon. All right, so wrap up. So we focused on making time for PLC work. We revisited unpack standards, and boy, did we revisit that, didn't we? And then we also did big ideas and essential questions, and you guys hit it out of the park, and did a fantastic job. And I just want to like really iterate that you did a really good job on this. And I do think Karen's right. Having time to really break it out and discuss it really helps, because this tends to be a sticky point for folks to understand, like, what is the purpose of this? How do I do it? And we have to do a lot of back and forth. So you guys did such a fantastic job. And thank you so much, coaches, for being fantastic supports. And then we unwrapped standards with greater, I feel like you did it with greater skill and clearer purpose. Do you feel like you did it with greater skill and clearer purpose today? I don't know if you all applied the team feedback protocols. Coaches, how'd they do? Were they doing a good job being polite and having good constructive conversation when they're in there?
Of course.
Of course. Okay. Awesome. And then integrating the process of identifying your big picture and essential questions. I should say big idea and essential questions, and the importance of the unwrapped standard. You guys, I feel like did a really good job on that. But how do you all feel like you did today? Thumbs up. Are we feeling good? Okay. Thanks, Al. Was that a hand raise or an agreement?
Yes, both.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know what is like how long is gonna be later, but before we finish, I wanna thank, because today I feel like this session makes me feel like more like understanding many things that previously I feel like I was like flying, like when you are swimming and swimming, and
Yes.
you don't see any land, and now I feel like I see something.
Yes.
I want to
Yes.
say thank you to like for this session, and also like I was feeling like makes me understand how maybe the student can feel when there is no
Mhm.
guidance or orientation from the teacher.
Yeah.
Like, but that made me feel like, oh, but thank you.
Yes, yes. And I think one of the things I can say about this institute, which Karen started, is it does a really good job with scaffolding on content. We try not to throw it all at you at once, but instead give you incremental opportunities to build upon it. In that handout that I uploaded into the chat, it does include extra stuff that we haven't done yet, which is totally okay. But we will do those things later. But don't feel like you have to be pressured to jump into developing your CFA yet. Karen, you're kind of making a face. Were you going to say something?
Oh no.
Okay. She's
I'm
thinking.
just
It sounds
drained from my cold. That's it.
like, and Karen is also recovering from being sick. So thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
Uh,
All right. Our next webinar is going to be on Friday, March 6th, same bat time, same bat channel. I will adjust our calendar invites because it not only confused some of you, it threw me off. I was logged in a whole hour early thinking we were starting at 3. So I try to build in my cushion time to make sure that we log in and do the tech check and all of that. But I'm realizing that like I didn't realize that. So then I added another cushion, and then I'm like, threw me off. So I'm going to adjust the invites moving forward so it doesn't throw all of us off and you guys don't lose 30 minutes waiting for the webinar to start, because that was a little confusing. And then we'll come back together in May for 2 days for our final 2 sessions. So be there or be square, I guess. Is that still cool to say? I don't know. So in March, we're going to focus on assessments and rubrics. And so you'll see that handout I pop into the chat again in March, because we're going to be leading into that. In May, we'll focus on assessment results and data, feedback to teams and students. And this actually connects to what was said earlier today. I don't know if it was Isabel, but one of you mentioned the connection to students when we were talking about making time and giving timely feedback, and how it reminded you of what students need and making sure to do that with students. That's specifically what we'll be focusing on in that feedback for student learning part in May. We'll also focus a bit on responding to resistance because no matter how much we may want everybody to hold hands with us and agree and be happy to do this work, sometimes people can be a little bit leery. So we'll talk about what that looks like. And sometimes people aren't leery on purpose. They might just be shy, feeling insecure. There's a lot of reasons why people might be quiet, may not contribute, or might pull back. So we'll talk about that a bit next time. And then, this is important, you will have your implementation report out. So that's the presentation. It's basically your capstone presentation. It is required to get your certificate for PLC Institute. That includes the number of hours that are completed. So please make sure you guys have lots of time between now and then to meet. But if you have any questions, or if you're like, I'm not sure what all to include, like you're going to report out on how your SMART goal is going and that kind of stuff. But your coaches can also help you with all of that too if you have questions. So, and I'm also here as a resource if you need anything. All right, we have assignments that are due by March 7th. I put March 6th on in Moodle to kind of encourage everybody to get it done before the day of, but if you turn in the day of, still okay. It's not technically late. There's a distributive leadership roles and responsibilities activity. We talked a bit about distributive leadership back in November. And so this is an activity that you do with your team. You individually do a little survey type thing, checklist, and then you share that with your team and then decide where do we need to adjust in our distributive leadership roles and responsibilities. And so fair warning, resist the urge to make everything the principal's responsibility. Because remember, PLCs are student focused and teacher led. So don't just mark off Angela and Eric are responsible for everything, although there are some things that they will be responsible for. There's also a common formative assessment lesson in there. It's just a series of readings about what CFAs are to help you understand the background. We recommend that you read all of those, but if you don't, no one's going to smack your hand. We're going to go over what CFAs are at the next session as well. So if it feels overwhelming doing all of that reading, that's totally okay. We're still going to talk about it in the May session. Some people like me are nerds and like to do the pre-reading and know in advance. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. No one's going to count it against you. And then there's also a video on data-driven protocol for PLC teams. I do ask that you please watch that 8-minute and 28-second video because we are going to be utilizing the data-driven protocol a bit when we have our training next time, okay? We'll talk a bit about it too, but it's just way clearer if you watch the video first, okay? So please make sure we do our homework assignments. If you're feeling bogged down or need help with anything, check with your coaches. But again, those long reading activities, things like that, those are informational. We're not going to hold it against you if you can get it done. We will prep you when we see you next time to make sure you have all the information you need. Any questions? No? Okay. All right, so just a reminder, our CalPro PLC facilitation team, the only person we're missing today is Stephen. He was busy. James was nice enough to join us at the end and just in time to join the breakout. But we're all here for you if you need anything. We do send questions to one another. We support each other with resources. We help each other a lot. So if there's anything one coach has a question about or that they don't know, then they reach out to they tap into the hive mind and we all support each other. So asking your coach, if they don't know, they'll get it to the whole group. And also, if you come across anything that you find super useful to you, that it's helping you in your PLC process, please do share that with your coach because they share it at our coaching and facilitation meeting and kind of helps us have a resource repository of things that work for us. So if you happen to stumble upon something that just gives you a light bulb moment, please do share it with us. All right, and that is it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for pivoting and getting everything done and doing such a great job. James said he's going to see you next week, Colton. Everybody knows now, so you have to show up. All right. I hope everybody has a happy Friday. If you're feeling slightly under the weather, I hope you feel better. Get some rest. It's a bad cold and flu season, so take care of you and have a beautiful weekend. Thank you for great work today, team. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.